All right, hi, welcome back to the channel. This is probably a terrible idea. I'm just gonna start this video off by saying this is probably a terrible idea. But I have signed up for the semifinal round of the Booktube prize to judge fiction again. I watched the video, like the premiere of the finalists or the semifinal groupings. Both groupings, strong books in them. There are reasons why I don't love either of the groupings. So, you know, it is what it is. I think as far as like the books in each of the groupings, the ones that I think that I would like more are in the first grouping, but that would mean I would have to read Demon Copperhead. And I think we all know how I feel about that. So I did get my email from Robert, and I'm about to open it and find out what grouping I got. So I'm not prepared. Okay, so, gosh, it's been so long since I did one of these, so I don't remember. Okay, logging in. Okay, sorry, I am like partially excited and partially not, but also like I do not have to read Demon Copperhead. Oh, thank God. The Booktube prize, gods have shined on me because I got grouping B, which I will put up on the screen now. This one has Take My Hand, Young Mungo, Trespasses, Kaikeyi, Trust, and Horse. I actually own Trust. I just bought this over the weekend in Roanoke. The bookseller there talked me into it. I've been interested in this book for a while, and obviously it won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction along with Demon Copperhead. So I own Trust. That's exciting. That's probably going to be the first one that I like physically pick up since I already own it. But I have wanted to read. What's happening right now? Kaikeyi is something I've been wanting to read. I think I have an audiobook of that already. Sorry, pardon me. Take My Hand is another one that I've been really interested in. And Trespasses is on the Women's Prize for Fiction. So it's something that I was loosely interested in, but wasn't sure if I wanted to read. I know that my library has that one. And then Young Mungo, I don't have feelings either way about that. And Horse also don't have feelings either way about that. So, yeah. I'm excited to read a couple of those. But I do have 6 books to read. Just a quick check-in to say that I'm going to start this weekend. Do I know what it's about? Sort of. I know that it's, so seeing on the back, it's set in the 20s. I know that it's like told in 4 parts. So the first part is like a Wall Street tycoon telling his story, and then there's a book, like the second part is a book written about his story, and then I don't know what the third one is, but the fourth one is his wife's perspective. So it's like this play on perspective of like how how this one man's life is seen from all these different points of view. I don't know. But I am going to start this weekend and hopefully get a little bit of reading done. I honestly, like weekends, I don't get that much reading done because we're just doing things all the time. So we're going to go for a hike tomorrow. And then I need to take my kid to get his hair cut, but I just like can't commit to it. So I will try to get some read in this, and I will probably try to update you once I've read one of the parts, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I am 60 pages. No, I'm sorry, 70 pages into Trust by Hernan Diaz. And I like this so far. I think I was wrong. The first one is like a novel about this man's life. The second one is, I think, him telling his own story. So like an autobiography, maybe? Yeah. The third one is like a memoir about his life. And then the fourth one is his wife telling the story. I'm a little confused though because on the back it refers to them as Benjamin and Helen, but then like the My Life, his name is Andrew Bevel, and the Futures is Mildred Bevel, but their names are Benjamin and Helen Rask. So I don't know if that's just like that's the novelized names, but like why would they call them by the novelized name on the blurb? That confuses me a little bit. I'm sure I will find out as I continue to read. But yeah, so far so good with this one. Yeah, I have, I think, like 120 pages left in the first section, and then the second section is much shorter with shorter chapters. So yeah, it's been a long day. It reads really, really fast, so that also is nice. So it's definitely, I was saying, like, good Lord, did they use every inch of paper in this book? I'm not used to reading paperbacks of literary fiction, so there's that. But yeah, so enjoying it so far. So I finished the first part of this, which I think is like the novelized version of his life. Although it doesn't read like a novel. It just reads like a nonfiction, narrative nonfiction or something, if we were to classify it as some type of book. So I'm moving on to the second part, which is, I think, the actual financier's account of his own life. So that should be quite interesting. It's not nearly as long. It's about 60 pages. So maybe, depending on what my day looks like, I might get into a good ways into this. This reads really fast, and I find it super engaging. I think if I didn't know that each section is basically the same story told from a different perspective, and we were going to kind of like look at this as a character study and how like the different sides of the story, and like there's more to it. If I didn't know that, I don't know that the first part would have been as engaging. It was well written, but there were moments where it was kind of just sort of like a lot of information. But knowing that we're about to like get different perspectives, I was looking at it like, what about this might not be the truth? Or what about this could be perceived a certain way, but may be a different way? And also, through the whole thing, knowing that the last perspective is his wife's perspective, I can't wait to read that, because that, I think, is going to be really fascinating. Because her story, as part of the bigger story, is quite intriguing. So, yeah, I am really liking this so far, and I can't wait to read more of it. Here to say that I finished the second part of Trust, which is like the actual like financiers autobiography. I'm not really sure, because it's like his notes mostly, because like it'll be information and then it'll just say like details, or like notes to himself to like include information, but obviously the information isn't there. So like it's very piecemeal. So like it read quickly, but also it's kind of confusing. And I'm already getting the like his perspective of the events versus the like novelized version of his life are completely different. Like completely different. Like his upbringing, his relationship with his wife, like so much of it is so different. So I don't know. Interesting. We'll see what the next part brings. The next part is the memoir section. So like somebody writing a memoir about him. And then the fourth section is like his wife's journals or something. So yeah, the stuff about his wife was definitely very interesting. The differences in the two stories so far. So I really like this book. Part 3 of this is slow as hell. So I don't know I don't know how. But like part 1 and part 2 read really fast. Part 3 is like, so it's kind of like a memoir of the author that's actually writing it, who's writing the autobiography of, or the biography, I don't know, whatever, of like the financier that the whole book is about. But like very little of it is actually the autobiography of that person. And then like the whole first chunk so far has been like her backstory. And I don't care about her. Is that bad? But I also feel like other people have said that like the third part is really slow and not their favorite. But then like the fourth part is the wow factor. So just over here reading this, trying to get through part 3, hoping it has some nuggets of glory in it. So yeah. I'm getting closer to the end of part 3, and part 3 has picked up in tone and intrigue. I feel like I can't really share more, but I am finding that this book is less about, not less about the financier, but like more about his wife. Like all of these are stories of him, but they're also stories of his wife. And I think we're about to find out more about her and the real her. And I think that's going to say a lot about her husband as well. But yeah, this is as good as everyone says it is. And I like could just sit down today and read the whole rest of this, which is like 100 pages. Yeah, I have exactly 100 pages left. Like I could literally sit down and just like binge read this today. I do not have time to do that. But I'm a big fan. I just binged the rest of the third part, and I want to binge the last part. Look how little is left. I'm gonna finish this tonight for sure. Very interesting. I'm getting like a menacing feeling. I can't wait to find out what happens in part 4. So I finished Trust by Hernan Diaz, and I really enjoyed this overall. I would say I would give it a 4.5 stars, mostly because like the beginning of the third part was really slow. When you start to kind of realize what's going on with that, and then the little parts about from present day from that same person, it starts to pick up. The 4th chapter does not disappoint. And yeah, it was a solid book. It read a lot faster than I expected it to. And I really liked the whole like interplay of like, what is the truth? And I think this is highlighting that whole thing about the powerful right history, or like the victor's right history, and how like wealthy people can get whatever they want because they have money and they can use their money as influence. And I think the way this is done and like some of the reveals definitely highlight that entire thing. Like wealthy people, powerful people can rewrite history to try to make themselves look good and stuff like that. It was great. The last part had like some little things peppered in that make you think about some of the stuff that was said earlier. Like you do figure out some things. I'm not going to say anything because those are spoilers, but like the way that it's written is not a straightforward narrative, and the end of the book doesn't feel like an ending. It just sort of like ends, but you're also prepped that that's probably going to be the case. So I thought that was really interesting how that was done. And I just think overall this was a really interesting format for a book, and I thought it hit right on the mark. So I am a big fan. Liked this one. I am going to be moving on to Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. I chose this one because I don't know. I don't feel any sort of way about this. I feel like I was interested to read this, and I actually checked it out from the library like when the long list was announced. But then I returned it because some of the reviews I was just sort of like, not totally my thing, but it is on the short list. The short list is announced, the winner of the Women's Prize is announced, as of filming, obviously, is announced in like 3 days. Not going to finish this in 3 days unless it's just absolutely engrossing, and even then probably not, because I just don't have that kind of time right now in my life. But I thought I would go ahead and pick this one up since it is dually on the Booktube prize and the Women's Prize. So that's where I'm going next. So I can't even remember if I've already told you that I'm reading this, but I'm reading Trespasses. I am 60 pages in. No, that was wishful thinking. That's the next mark that I'd like to get to, is the 60 page mark. I'm 44 pages in, and I don't have a lot of thoughts on this yet. Mostly it's just sort of like, so far, this story about this young woman who is a teacher but also works in her family's pub every now and then. And I do know, because I've seen like reviews of this, that there is like an affair that happens. It's set during the Troubles. I want to say she's definitely Catholic, but I want to say the man that like the affair happens with is Protestant. So like there's that aspect to it, as far as like it being set during the Troubles, but I don't really know. And 44 pages in is not really that far in to have an idea of what the book is about, so I don't really expect to. The writing is fine. It's nothing that like draws me in and makes me want to like keep turning pages yet. But we'll see. There is this really annoying thing where she doesn't use quotation marks around dialogue. I don't know why that drives me crazy, but it does, and this book doesn't. So there's that. But yeah, gonna keep reading this, and I'll let you know what I think when I'm a little further in and actually kind of understand what the book's about. So I'm at the 50% mark of Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, and I'm liking it. Like, I am wanting to pick it up, which is always a plus.
So I have about 100 pages left. Is that right? Something like that. About 130 pages left. So yeah, so this is the second book that I think I've read in the past like year or so that is about the Troubles. And interestingly enough, both books had like frowned upon sexual trysts in them, if you will. So I don't know what's up with that dynamic. I think maybe it there is like a play on, obviously the Troubles are awful and what's happening and like the violence of it and everything, and the upheaval. And then, there's like the like enjoying life to its fullest, like carnal pleasure thing of the dichotomy there, which, is a thing. And I just think it's interesting because the other book that I read that was set during the Troubles was The Colony. It was set on like a remote island, but then it was interspersed with all these like radio bulletins essentially about like the violence happening on the mainland. So this is basically like this woman is having an affair with a married man, and who's quite a bit older than her. I don't think that's definitely not a spoiler because I've heard multiple people talk about it. Like I knew that going into this book. And like we're getting mundane life, and we're getting like their affair and like details about it. And then we're also hearing about these horrific things that are happening and the way that Catholics and Protestants are treating each other, and just like that dynamic of society. So, it has not a similar feel to The Colony, because I think The Colony has a very specific feel. But it does definitely, like those two in my head are like linked for some reason. So, yeah. So far, so good. I am hoping to finish this up this weekend and then move on to my next Booktube prize book, because one of the 4 that I have left, somebody wants it from the library, so I need to read it before the end of June.
So I finished Trespasses, and I really enjoyed this. I think ultimately I would give it 4 stars. It's one of those things where it's like the central relationship in here I just don't get. Like, I don't get how it happened. Like, I don't understand why the events that unfolded. And like, I'm just not a big fan of infidelity in literature in the first place, which is a big part of this. It's not a spoiler because I'm pretty sure that's in the jacket copy. Yes, it is. But I did think that it was like, so it's set during the Troubles, I've mentioned that, but it's very much about like domestic life, like the life that still goes on during such a violent and like just like such upheaval and violence going on around them, but yet life goes on. Still have to go to their jobs. They still, are dealing with family issues and tensions. They're still having affairs, and people are still making art and stuff like that. So I did think that was really interesting, and I think this is beautifully written. It just, it wasn't ultimately like my cup of tea. I'm glad I read it, and I think I would recommend it, as long as like the whole infidelity, cheating trope, I call it a trope, that line, plot line doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother me. It's just my favorite thing to read about. But yeah, still a stellar book. Currently in second of the 2 that I've read. Trust is still winning in my mind. But yeah. I matched the book. I am starting Horse by Geraldine Brooks. So I sort of read the blurb and knew that it has something to do with art and art history and like a black painter during like the Civil War, and obviously something about horses. But I don't think I like thought about it a lot, because then I read the first 4 pages and it's like a black art historian from like Nigeria. And then apparently the other main perspective is an enslaved black man from Civil War times. This book's written by a white woman. And published in 2022. Like, why is a white woman writing 2 black perspectives in this day and age? So I'm not loving that. Obviously I have to read it, Booktube prize. I think if I, like, if given my own choice, regardless of how good this book is, I still probably wouldn't have picked it up, knowing it's a white woman writing 2 black male perspectives. So just that, and we'll be keeping that in mind throughout the book. But yeah, jumping into this one with a little bit of trepidation. Guys, I am, what page am I on?
I'm 25 pages into this, so clearly not very far. I don't care about horses. I know the name of this is Horse, but we've already had to listen through a description of a horse being studded, and also description of a horse being born. So I don't care about horses. I think they're beautiful, majestic animals, but like I don't want to read about the nitty-gritty of taking care of horses. Fun times. So continuing on with this right now, but not super excited about it so far. I will say that I did see somebody talking about a different book in the Booktube prize, which I think I'm going to read next. That was like their favorite book of the year so far. So I'm excited to read that one. Not excited about this one. Nay. All right. So I'm only 25% into this. This is a slog. Like, how did this get to the semifinals? Because do that many of you people care about horses this much? Because this is about horses. I don't know. Like, I might have to look up and see if my library has an audiobook of this, because I am not sure that I can make it through this whole book and still read the other 3 in time for the end of July, because that's just how much I am not interested in this. Like, this would be an absolute hard DNF for me if it was not a Booktube prize book, because I don't care about the outcome of this. Like, and also the fact that it is a narrative about slavery with multiple Black POVs written by a white woman. Like, I just don't think we needed this. So yeah, I'm struggling with what to do. I'm considering setting this aside and picking up one of these 3 books. So yeah, I don't know. Just don't care about this book and horses and this white woman's perspective of slavery. Don't. I am can you even see that? No. I'm starting there you go.
I'm starting the audiobook of Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel, yeah. So I'm starting this today. I'm gonna get like 10 minutes of listening in right now. So, you know, not a whole lot right now, but it is a myth retelling, but not a Greek myth retelling, so good, because I'm kind of burnt out on those. This was something that I had on my most anticipated reads list for 2022 and never got around to it, so I'm excited to get around to it now. And I typically like myth retellings on audio anyways, so we'll see. I do have the physical book from the library, so if I'm not gelling with the audiobook, I may pick that up. But I'm currently working on finishing some other books for my physical TBR, because the part where I didn't own any of these, and I'm trying to read more books that I own this year. So this is the Booktube prize is really getting me on books I don't own. So anyways, reading that, I'll let you know once I have gotten kind of a little ways into the book. Okay. So I'm listening to the audiobook of Kaikeyi. But I still have the physical book, and I'm like putting the bookmark in it. I just saw the weirdest thing, and I'm curious if anyone's ever seen this happen in a book before. No, I can't find it. There it is. There. See how it's pink right here? This is like 2 pages fused together. It's like this part. It feels kind of like this book was printed on like the last of the printer paper or something. Like what? That's so weird. And it's not like that on every page, but it's like, I don't know, like every 6 pages or something. Because there it is again. And then I think I saw it again somewhere. I don't know, that's so weird. Yeah, it's just in that one section of the book. Like, it's not the whole book. Yeah, there's another one. What in the world? That's so weird. Yeah, it's like... Anyways, I'm enjoying this so far. I feel like, so the one thing I have to say about this so far is like, I'm kind of like, this isn't really anything special. And I don't mean that like rudely, like it's well written. I'm interested in the characters, but also it's the same thing that I have felt with a lot of like feminist retellings of myths, is that like the very first one I read was so good, just like incredible. And then everything after that sort of felt samey, maybe? I don't know. I think it's a genre that's not particularly for me. I do like that this is not a myth I'm familiar with, so it does sort of just feel like a literary fantasy set in this area of the world. And yeah, I don't know. Kaikeyi is a really strong person, and I think the binding plane aspect of it is really interesting, and kind of like how that plays into our relationships with people and how we gain influence, or how she gains influence and stuff like that. So I think that's really interesting. And I am clearly only a very, like about 20% in, so there is a lot to happen. And my understanding of this is that this particular figure from like legend, there's not a lot of information about her. Like there's information about like this one event that happens in her life that influences like these other really important events in the culture, but her as like an actual person, there's not a whole lot of information. So like this is the author creating a story for her, weaving together different versions of the same myth to create this version of Kaikeyi and the events of that myth. So interesting. I think once I get further into it and things like start happening, I will be more interested. I do think that audiobook was the right choice for this. Because there's a lot of names that I would have had a lot of trouble pronouncing. So it is more immersive with somebody actually pronouncing those things for me. So yeah. Update on Kaikeyi. Where's the book? I have the book right here. Sorry. I'm listening to the audiobook. I am really enjoying this. I think she is a super interesting character. And so far, I like where this has gone. And seeing her like come into her own, and like there was a moment of where she felt not as strong as she's felt because she was in a new environment, but then like her finding her footing. I loved that part of it, and the audiobook is really great. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying this. I'm 30% through it, and I just am looking forward to seeing how it goes, like where it goes from here, essentially, because so far, so good. And I really don't know a lot about this myth, so I have no idea where it's going. So I'm just along for the ride, to be honest. All right, I want to talk about Kaikeyi. And yes, I do have a cut on my nose, and I have no idea where it came from. So don't ask me how I ended up with a cut literally in the middle of my face and yet have no recollection of how I did this. I feel like I either scratched myself or my toddler scratched me, but like, yeah, so ignore that. I am at like the 70% mark for Kaikeyi, so not giving any plot away here, but just I'm so riveted. Like, I love her, and like genuinely am so concerned about the events of the next like 30% of this book. Being the beginning kind of makes it seem like it's not going to be a good end for her. But like, it's just so good. Don't mind me just crying at 10 o'clock at night. I have been listening to the audiobook of Kaikeyi while playing Animal Crossing and then watching reading sprints. I have them muted while I talk to you, but I am like, I just remembered, or I got an email that reminded me that I have 2 weeks left to finish out the Booktube prize, and I have 2 more books to read, so I've got to get moving right now. So I'm trying to finish this one so that I can start another audiobook, because it's the only way that this is going to happen, to be honest. So I did finish Kaikeyi. This is incredible. Definitely 5 stars. I think it's funny because thinking back to when I first started this, and I was like, aren't all of these myth retellings basically the same? No. If you are tired of myth retellings, then do your favor, but you like them, then do yourself a favor and pick this up, because it's so good. So Kaikeyi as a character is so fascinating and so richly like told, and her story has so many different facets. So I don't feel like I can give this, like, do this book justice, but just like big feminist vibes, but also like my heart as a mom, just sort of, there are moments in here that'll really get you. And just the magic system, I guess is what I'm gonna call it, in this is so cool.
and I don't know, it feels like it has a lot to say about society in general and just like influence and all of that, and I just really love this. So this is definitely a 5-star read and has like shot to the top of my list for sure.
Woke up and my hair made me look like a bog witch. So no comments on the hair, please. So I'm starting Young Mungo. Yeah, I have heard really good things about this. I've only read like 3 pages of it. And I just needed a change from the other Booktube prize book I was reading, which you'll hear about in the section about that one. So I'm going with this one, which I did purchase because the only other way I could find it, well, I could get the audiobook or the ebook on Scribd, but like I'm not good with ebooks for the most part, and I just don't love I don't know. I have mixed results with audiobooks when it comes to literary fiction, and because I'd heard such good things about this and it's queer, I decided to just go ahead and bite the bullet and buy this. So yeah, this is going to be the next one that I read.
I started this, but to be honest, I'm struggling a little bit. I think another book in this list put me into kind of a slumpy slump. So I'm just not super feeling literary fiction at the moment, which is a shame because I still have 2 more books to get through before the end. But yeah, so I'm on like page 13 of this book and I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea. I do know that this is yet another book set during the Troubles. So I know that there's like an LGBTQ story to this, and one of the guys is Protestant and one of them is Catholic. So this is another like kind of cross, those aren't denominations, religious, I don't know. Yeah, so I just think that's interesting because Trespasses also was. So I think once I get into this book, I will enjoy it, but I'm just having a really hard time right now with like starting a new book, and like getting into it and getting acquainted with the characters. That's always the hardest part of any book for me, but that's what I'm struggling with right now. So I'm hoping to like read before the end of the week to page like 50 or so to just like get into the story, and then hopefully from there I'll want to like read it all the time. That's usually what happens. But yeah, definitely struggling at this point.
Just quick check-in to say that I think we're back in business. Not my favorite so far start to a book, but I am at the 50-page mark and I do want to continue reading, so that's good. The writing is good. I think I'm just having a little difficulty with is it Glaswegian, the Glasgow dialect. So getting used to that, I think, has been part of the problem. But yeah, I'm starting to get interested.
So Young Mungo, I've made almost no progress in. So it's not I feel like it's not the book per se. It's just life right now. Anything other than an audiobook just isn't getting read. So tentatively I'm switching to the audiobook on this, but it is 4:00 on Sunday and my plan is to read and do the like reading sprint situation, with other things I want to do because, oh boy, I have 2 weeks until the Booktube Prize cutoff for giving my opinion, and I still have to read this one and an entire another book. So I've tentatively switched to the audiobook for this because I had it available and I don't have an audiobook of the other one. So the only problem with that is that this is definitely read by someone with a really heavy accent, and that may be a problem for my understanding. So we'll see how this goes. I'm glad I did the audiobook of this because I've been listening to it when I drive, and it's sped up tremendously my enjoyment of it, because now I'm about 40% into this and I'm really enjoying it. I really like the character of Mungo. It's hard to listen to at times because of the violence that he's surrounded by, and the alcoholism, the way that he doesn't really have a family to look out for him, and the one family person he does is in what potentially could be a really bad situation. And yeah, so there's a lot of poverty and traumatic things happening, and this definitely has a lot of trigger warnings, to be sure. But I am definitely enjoying it more than I was when I first started it. So that is a good sign, and I do not think I'll have a problem getting it finished in time. All right, so I've passed the halfway mark on this, and this is brutal in places, which I feel like that's how people described Shuggie Bain, which is also by this author. And I never really had an interest in Shuggie Bain because of the way that they describe it. And I feel like probably this is similar in tone to Shuggie Bain, but I don't know. But it's very descriptive and visceral, because some of the things that are described in here, I was just whoa, because it was just that real. And yeah, some of it is just really gross. But also the whole thing is visceral. So the streets of Glasgow, the camping area, lock situation where they are for part of the book. But yeah, there's some basically I've now realized that we are in present day, he's with these two men who are raging alcoholics at this lock, learning to fish, and to become a man. And he's been sent there, sent with them by his mom. And then the other perspective is, they're both Mungo's perspective, but timeline is leading up to why he was sent with them. So we're kind of piecing together that something has happened. We don't know what has happened, but something's happened. And we're kind of piecing together what that is. And yeah, there's also randomly will be perspectives from his sister Jody, briefly, really short chapters from her perspective. And I'm curious why, since the majority of the book is from Mungo's perspective. So I'm curious if the setting up of her perspective, what the importance of that is. So I don't know. So far, I have enjoyed it. Definitely not my favorite, but it's good. So I have finished this. Audiobook was definitely the way to go, because this is just okay, if I'm being honest. It's not okay. Let me rewind. It's not that it's just okay. It is written really well. It's visceral. It is
like you feel there, you feel in this story. And I thought that the characterization of these, like the character building was fantastic. But this is just like, I have never read A Little Life and I will never read A Little Life, but this felt a little bit like torture porn. Like, this poor kid has been through hell and back. His family sucks. And then, like, he ends up on this camping trip with these two people who his mother knows from AA that are fresh out of prison. And just like the things that happen to this kid at the hands of like his family, at the hands of these men, just like in general, is disturbing. So I would say that this is not the kind of thing that I would really choose to read. So I didn't enjoy this, but I thought that it was well written. Like, I can't in good faith give it more than 3 stars, but also because it is so well written, I can't in good faith give it less than 3 stars. So it's just like a solid 3-star read for me. In that, like, the writing and the character building and everything is what makes this book like worthy of 3 stars in my opinion. But like the plot and how disturbing it is just not for me. So like I can't give it any stars for enjoyment. That is that. So yeah, that's where this one stands. I just have one left to go, so I have started Take My Hand. This one was going to be my next audiobook because I think this one would do better on audiobook than the other one. But I am on a 2-week waiting list for the audiobook at my library. So I'm going to start the physical book, and then if by chance the audiobook comes up, I'm going to switch to that because I think that one will go better on audiobook than the other one that I'm having to read on audiobook. But we'll see. So this is what I am moving on to. I know little to nothing about this one, except that it is written by a Black author. It is about a Black woman who is a nurse, I think. And I think there's like I was gonna say Roe v. Wade things, but I don't know for sure if it's about like an adoption situation, an abortion situation, I don't know. I really don't know, but I have wanted to read this one for a while because it's always gotten really good reviews. So I'm glad to be picking it up now. Well, there are 10 days until I have to turn in my ballot, and I am still only 13 pages into this. The 13 pages I've read, I liked. So I think that I really could get into this and read it quickly. It's got pretty big font and margins, so there's that. And the story sounds really compelling. I just, like, physical books have not been it for me recently. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is, like, set myself a challenge. Like, I need to get my calculator out and, like, put tabs in it and be like, I have to read this many pages. Like, to figure out how many pages I have to read in order to finish it in 10 days. Have I even talked about starting this book? I'm really not sure if I have. But this one is set in the 70s in Alabama, Montgomery, I think predominantly, and then also in 2016, when the main character, who is a nurse in the 70s, and she works at like a family planning clinic, and then in the 2016 part, she's like going to visit one of the girls that she meets in the beginning of this book. I will say that there are parts of this that are a little hard to read post this year's Supreme Court decisions, or I guess that was last year, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. a little difficult to read some of this in that context. But this is very compelling. I have sort of been in like a slumpy kind of mood because I'm just like, there are things that I would prefer to be reading right now than some of the Booktube prize books. But at the same time, I have like 9 days to finish this one and one other one. But this has definitely grabbed my attention, so that's really exciting. I'm almost 100 pages into it. I've got my tabs up there. And yeah, it's just, I like this one. So I think this will be a relatively quick read because every time I sit down to read it, I read quite a few pages of it. So yeah, I am nearing the end of Take My Hand. And I don't know if I said this or not, but I ended up switching to the audiobook of that one once I finished my last audiobook, just because that would give me more options. I still read some of it physically when I felt like it, but the audio has been a really good option for me because I for some reason, lately I've just not been, whenever I have a free moment, I haven't been picking up a book, so need to do better about that in August because I think it helps me when I do. But back to this book, I am really invested in this book, and there have been a couple of like WTF mate moments. Basically, the book is following this woman who is a nurse for a family planning clinic, and she finds out that the birth control shots that she's giving to these girls who are not even 16 haven't actually been approved by the FDA, and it starts this whole like them trying to see like, is something shady happening here. It's very much focusing on the way that poor Black people especially were treated like medical subjects for like consenting human testing, essentially, for certain things, referencing the Tuskegee case, and then obviously with this with the birth control issue. And then there's a big plot point that is awful that happens. That kicks off this whole like federal case. And so we're following her and her interactions with this family, and just like the federal case. And then also there's like a present day portion that I'm not entirely sure what the point is or what's happening here. Because like at the beginning there's a daughter that's like mentioned briefly, but our main character never married, doesn't talk about anyone like that she was dating or anything. There's just this daughter, and there's something about what she's doing in the present day has to do with like the daughter and stuff that she hasn't told her. I'm very unsure what the present day part has to do with anything, but I'm sure there will be some kind of like twist reveal coming up very soon. But yeah, I am really invested in this story. I finished this. I listened to the audio while I was finishing up some things. So I did finish up this book, and I really enjoyed it. Ultimately, I think I would give it a 4.5. It felt kind of anticlimactic, if I'm being honest. But everything I said in the previous clip about like what the themes of this are, just talking about reproductive health and how specifically the U.S. treats Black bodies, and especially the bodies of Black women, and just like the why can't I think of that word? Autocracies?
atrocities. That's what I should be filming clips at 10:30 at night. The atrocities that have happened in this country to poor people, to Black people. So yeah, I think this book is really hard hitting. It definitely made me want to like look up some of this, because it is based on a true story, or it takes a lot of the main plot about the trial and everything from a true story. And now I want to look up that true story and just find out more, because it's something that I'm like vaguely familiar with, and the Tuskegee case is something that I knew about, because I think we might have studied that in college at some point. I'm not sure, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. But like, it definitely has me wanting to know more, and I think this is a really impactful book. So yes.
Well, I guess it's time to wrap this up and give you my final standing, I guess. I have already submitted my ballot, you know, just like 2 days shy of the cutoff. Let's talk about where the books stand. It will come as no surprise that my number 6 book is Horse by Geraldine Brooks. I know it's probably controversial to some people that I didn't finish this book, but to be honest, with the caliber of the other books, this would have always been my last. Like, I didn't like the writing in this book. I was not a fan of the fact that it is a book about 2 Black men's perspectives written by a white woman. I just don't think that that is a thing that we need in this year and time, and with all of the wonderful Black authors out there that are writing books set in these time periods and about this subject matter. Not necessarily the horse part of it, but genuinely there are other people I feel like deserve to be on this list for similar books than this one. And then I just, like, nothing about the plot was interesting to me. So it's one of those things where prioritize my mental health, ditched this one, and I am happy about it, and it is taking the number 6 spot. I will not be rating it since I did DNF it. In 5th, I have Young Mungo. While I thought this was impeccably written, I think I used the word visceral multiple times in those clips, because that is the best word to describe this. It really sets the scene and puts you in that atmosphere that Mungo is in. It didn't have an enjoyment value for me, so that doesn't always matter. So there are plenty of books that are brutal and aren't something that I find like personally enjoyable to read, that I still would rate a 4 and 5 stars. This one just didn't do that for me. And that's okay. So it ended up with 3 stars, and it ends up in the 5th spot. And then I have Trespasses by Louise Kennedy in the 4th spot. I read this one really early in June, and I flew through it, and I enjoyed the book at the time. I think that it does have a lot to say about like the lives of people during the Troubles. So like people going about their day-to-day lives while all these horrific things are happening around them. And I thought that was very interesting to read about. I didn't really buy the love interest situation. And I think ultimately like that's part of why this book didn't really make it higher on my list. It's still got a 4 stars for me, so I still really do enjoy this book. I thought the writing was great, but it just falls in the middle because the other 3 books were just so much better. So then in my number 3 spot, so these are the 3 books that are going through to the next round for me. My number 3 spot was Take My Hand, and I just thought this was beautiful. This is a story about a nurse, and it deals with all of these really hard topics, so about poverty and racism, how science and medicine can be very classist and racist, and it also dealt with like real human connections with people, and I really loved this. This is a book that I have wanted to read for some time, like since it came out. So I was really grateful that this pushed me to read it sooner, because I really enjoyed this book, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. So it does take the 3rd spot. And then Trust is in my number 2 spot. I loved this. I thought the way that it was told is what made this so interesting. I think if it had just been a straightforward narrative, it wouldn't be this high up. It wouldn't have been this interesting to read. But the fact that like you were getting these 4 different perspectives, and you were looking at the same person and the people surrounding them in all these different lights was so fascinating. And I just thought that the way that the book ended was impactful, and it just was very different from everything else that I read for this. And I gave it 4.75 stars, so almost a 5-star read for me. It was just missing that like little thing for me, but I also flew through this book, so highly recommend Trust. And then that leaves obviously Kaikeyi as my number 1 pick. I gave this 5 stars. I thought this was incredible, and for somebody who at the beginning of this video was sort of like, I'm burnt out on myth retellings, and to be honest, I like don't want to read any more myth retellings right now, I just loved this. I thought that we're looking at a myth that I personally don't have any knowledge of, and I just found the way that the culture and the sense of place and the characters were described as very rich, and it made me feel like I was like there, and I was attached to those people, and just like knowing that something from the beginning, that something not so great is going to happen. Like I felt this sense of anxiety for these characters, and that's always to me a really good sign in just like my attachment and enjoyment of a book. So yes, loved this one, recommend this one highly, and this is my number 1 pick. So that is it. That's a wrap for Booktube Prize Semifinals. I am not doing the finals because, y'all, I'm not reading Barbara Kingsolver. I'm just not doing it. And also, I struggled through this round hard, and I just want to spend the rest of the year reading the books I want to read when I want to read them, and I will enjoy seeing everybody else's take on the finale. So, thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.